Hello, everyone. This is Ella Barnard from allwriterswelcome.com and the All Writers Welcome Facebook group. And today I wanted to talk to you about finding time to write in your crazy busy life. Now, I give kudos to everyone, to all of you, for saying I'm a writer, because life is pretty busy and it can be often really difficult to find time to sit down and write. But kudos for making it a priority and doing what you got to do to make it happen. But I'm going to give you some tips here to maybe make it a little bit easier, hopefully. Okay. So the first thing we're going to talk about, because it's like kind of what's behind the finding time to write, is the mindset of making time to write, kind of. Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this concept of what's urgent versus what is important. And so what's important to you is finding time to write, is writing. Writing is what is important to you. And then what's urgent are those things that come up, like that they like need to be done right away, but maybe they aren't, as important in the long run. So the way I think about it is that urgent things are things that need to be done right now, but don't necessarily have a lasting impact. So that would be like picking things up around the house and putting them back where they need to go, or just like vacuuming or making your bed. Like, it doesn't have a lasting impact, but it is something that needs to be done right now. Now, those are the urgent things. The important things are the things that maybe don't need to be done right now. There's no immediate consequence to not doing them, but they're the things that you care about the most. So that's like, to continue with the cleaning analogy, that's like organizing the closet so it's so much easier to put things away because you've organized it. And so in the interim, it actually sometimes gets a lot messier to do the organizing. It doesn't actually mean anything, but in the long run, it makes a big difference. And so that's what usually writing falls under the what's important category. It's not something that necessarily has an immediate impact on your life, but in the long run, it can make a huge difference. And yes, though, the impact, what it is kind of it's a self-esteem or value or like day-to-day impact. So where you feel the impact when you don't do what's important to you is when you go to bed at night and there's kind of like this like a heavy feeling or a disappointment or a regret that, yes, you were very productive, but you didn't do that thing that you love. Because that's usually what writing is. It's one of those things that, yes, if your cat barks on the ground and you have to pick it up, or you have to vacuum, or you say, like, I have to vacuum. There's cat fur everywhere. I'm going to use a lot of cat analogies because I've got cats, so I'm familiar with that. Anyway, and so you're like, I got to take care of this stuff. And you get at the end of the day, and you're like, well, yes, I'm really glad that there's not cat fur everywhere, but you didn't make that time for what's really important and which will have a lasting impact on your well-being and that puts your heart into the world, which is your writing. So now I'm going to get into some tips. Now we've done the mindset stuff. So if you can, make it a point to focus on and prioritize what's important, even if it's just for a little bit of time every day. And some ways that you can do that are, the first way, it's a classic, get up early in the morning. Okay, so if you know that you're going to have a crazy day and there's going to be all kinds of stuff, which, let's be honest, almost everybody has crazy stuff happening in their life all the time. There's always something. There's always some dishes to do or laundry to do or errands to run or work is going to be, get in the way of something. It's always going to be something. What you can do is get up early in the morning before the day starts. And sometimes what I like to do is I'm laying in bed, I have my laptop on the ground next to the bed. And so in the morning, I sit up, grab my laptop, and just start typing right there. Because if you do 30 minutes, which isn't it's not like you're losing a lot of sleep with 30 minutes, right? If you could do 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, That's 2.5 hours per week. That's a pretty freaking big chunk of time. I mean, it's not huge, but you can get a lot of stuff done in 2.5 hours. And so get up early in the morning is my first tip for for focusing on what's important and finding time to write, because then once it's done, you can do the rest of the day and you've already done that thing that's important to you. So if you don't find time later, it doesn't matter because you already did it. Okay, step number 2 is find different ways to write. So this step is do an audio recording. Like there's a lot of apps that do recordings, and what you can do is just talk your book, talk your book into the app and record it, and then either you can transcribe it later, or you can hire somebody to transcribe it, and then you just make the edits from it. And you can find people transcribing on Fiverr for not unreasonable amounts. So the reason I mention this is because a long time ago, like a few years ago, I was reading blogs, and I don't remember which author it was, but it was some like best-selling, I think it was romance, because I love romance novels. And before there was apps and phones, and so she's been around for a while, but back in the day, before she was a professional writer, she would drive to work and she would have a little tape recorder, and she would write her books into the tape recorder and then come home and transcribe them. And she did that on the way to work. So she would drive to work, and as she was driving, she'd be like, and then Sally said, I can't believe, or whatever, So yes, that's another tip. And the convenient thing about that is you can do that while you're driving. You can do that while you're doing dishes. You can do that while you're, picking up around the house. You can do that you can do it wherever, almost, it's very convenient. You can't do it while you're vacuuming or maybe not while you're mowing the lawn, but you know what I mean? It's a really convenient way to get your writing done in a different way where you don't have to sit down and do it. You can be doing 2 things at once. So that's my tip number 2 for finding time to write. Okay, tip number 3 is to get creative. So my sister I'm going to use my sister for a lot of these examples because she's just awesome. But my sister has 3 kids now. And so what she does, and they're young, they're all like below kindergarten. And so what she does to make time to write is she takes the oldest one is in preschool or is in kindergarten, and she takes him to kindergarten, and then she goes to the nearest IKEA. She goes to IKEA, and IKEA has a playground. They have like a playground for while you're shopping, right? So she'll take the younger ones into the playground, and IKEA allows you an hour they'll watch your kids for an hour while you shop. Well, I guess she has a family membership, and the family membership gives her an extra half hour. So she gets an hour and a half, and the family membership comes with free coffee. And so she goes to IKEA after she drops off the one in kindergarten, puts the other kids in the playground, and then she brings her laptop and goes into the food section, grabs a cup of coffee, and just starts writing. And she has an hour and a half of time to herself. And all the kids are fine. Like the kids in kindergarten, he's fine. The kids in the playground are having a great time because they're playing with all these other kids. And at the end of the hour and a half, she's gotten all this writing done, and she can pick up the kids and go home. So she gets creative and makes time to write. A few years ago, she said she would go to the gym. And she said I talked to her recently, and she's like, a little bit more awkward because you're like, why are you in the lobby typing? Or why are you in the gym typing? But at IKEA, no problem. Like, people don't care if you're at one of the tables, on your computer or on your phone or whatever, making, doing stuff and drinking a cup of coffee. Not a big deal. So that's tip number 3 is get creative. Find some way to make time. And this always comes back to the mindset, because if you say, I am going to make time to write, and obviously you're a creative person, you're a writer, the opportunities or the creativity will come up, and you're like, oh, I can do this. I can do this. Here's ways that I can make time. I have one more tip is making time or finding time to write what you can do is make a commitment to someone else. And yes, it's accountability. So it's just like if you wanted to go to the gym and you need a gym buddy, like if you need somebody who's going to go with you, if you have made a commitment to somebody else and you're like, I'll be there at 9 o'clock, and they're like, yep, I will too, then you have to go because you're like, they're there, they're waiting for me, they're expecting me. So if you can make a commitment to another writer, you can say, hey, I'll meet you at that cafe at 5:30. And they're like, yeah, I'll see you there. And you go to the cafe and you both bring your laptops and you write and you have that commitment. It's like, remember in college, or you'd have a study group and you would go and get together, and you didn't have to be in the same classes, but you would all just study together. It's the same thing. You make your writing buddy and you just write together at the same time. And another convenient thing about that is if say you have a partner that has a harder time like being supportive, like let's say you do have kids and you're at home. Well, if you're at home and you're like, honey, can you watch the kids? Male or female, whichever way you go. If you're like, can you watch the kids? And they're like, yeah, sure. But the kids know you're there. And your partner may have other things that they get distracted by. Well, if you're like, hey, I'm meeting so-and-so at the cafe, then you're not going to have that distraction from your kids. And it's easier for them to support you because you're like, it's not just me. It's me and someone else who's expecting me. So those are my 4 tips for finding time to write. And it's all precedented by your mindset, which actually kind of makes it to making time to write, not finding time to write. So if you change your mindset, or you acknowledge your mindset and say, like, what's urgent versus what is important, and then say, I'm putting a priority on my writing because it's important to me and it's going to make a difference in the long run. That's the first thing. And then the tips are get up early in the morning, even if it's just 30 minutes, 5 times a week. You can also do audio recordings. You can, and then have them transcribed later. You can get creative. So whatever that it means for you, going to IKEA, going to the park, whatever that is, get creative. And then the 4th tip is to make a commitment to someone else and write with them at the same time. It doesn't even have to be at a cafe. It could be online. You can both get on Skype. You're like, I'll be on Skype. Oh, I will too. And you sit and you write and you have the commitment. And those are my 4 tips for finding/making time to write. Okay, thank you so much. And again, if you have any questions or you need anything, we are at allwriterswelcome.com or the All Writers Welcome Facebook group. Okay, I hope this was helpful for you, and I will see you later.